I heard it's the end of false life support and life extension schemes. My name is Solarah. I am a seer. I am a code keeper. I am a grid reinstator and arbiter of justice and liberator of those who've been wrongfully, spiritually oppressed. But most importantly of all, I am a new earth being. You are welcome here for as long as you are also in alignment with this whole desire to clear out the false matrix, to clear ourselves and this earth of all of the fuckery, injustice, imbalance, disharmony, discord, unlawfulness that has reigned on this planet for too long under the captivity of trespassers. Okay, so let's get into today's download, and I want to share a few things that brought me to this message. It's been kind of stirring in my soul for a little while now, but really came to a head this Saturday, the 27th, on the final 999 portal of the year. And I was chilling, I was grounding in a park, and I was doing some soul retrieval work. I actually channeled a lot of the codes for the most recent decree that I published the day after. On Sunday, I did a global soul retrieval and code reclamation of a locational code reclamation decree, which is basically calling back all of your energy, all of your codes, breaking all contracts from everywhere they've been stored in different global locations, buildings, monuments, land, etc. It's a very, very comprehensive decree that I first channeled personally, and then I transferred and created for the collective and released on Sunday. So if you're interested in that, I will put the link to that in the description box below. But I was, I was sitting down and I was grounding and, creating this decree. And right after I spoke it, it was so funny because I was right next to a playground, and there were these kids. It was Saturday morning, so it was pretty full, and there were these kids. I guess they were playing tag, these little boys, and all of a sudden I heard a child running away, and he's like, he's going to sacrifice himself, don't do it, and he's chasing this kid, and I'm just like, yep, that's a message right there. Okay, so what is the message about generally? Well, in this whole window of code return, you could say, the temptation to sacrifice yourself again might be high. And what do I mean by that? I'm not just talking about obvious ways of self-sacrifice. I'm talking about all the tricky ways that these former contracts will try to come into your energy to get you to latch on to the only thing that they still have a connection to and through. Okay, so for everyone that's going to be different. We will pull some cards and see what's going on. I know it's been very real in my own life. I've been seeing it trying to move in different ways to reattach to me, and I'm not having it, because another part of the message that was coming through is that we are in a rebirth tunnel, and what compromises your codes and new timelines is on the chopping block. So right now we are in a time where, we're never here to compromise ourselves to the point of sacrifice and giving up what is rightfully ours. But there are times on this journey where that a window or corridor opens where it's even more important to hold on to who you are, your value, what you've accrued, and what's coming back to you. And not for nothing, Libra season is I don't even want to say it's a renegotiation of contracts. It is on some level, but it is a time when a lot of old contracts that have expired are able to die for as long as you're able to let go of them. And when new contracts come on board very rapidly. This is why Libra, on the zodiac wheel, it's the first sign and house that opens the second half of the zodiac, because the first 6 houses are concerned with self. And when you move out into Libra, all the way through to Pisces, it becomes how you begin to share your energy. And we speak of that often in terms of contracts and agreements, because that's what energy exchange is. And a lot of the time we've come into this incarnation with certain soul contracts, certain obligations to fulfill certain things, karmically, from a standpoint of duty based upon who we are, our purpose on the earth, what we're here to enact and do and seed into the planet for the ascension. There's a multiple of things that we bring through when we come back here, that we are here to accomplish on a personal level, and then also with others. There are things that we are here to close out with beings from previous incarnations that we didn't, and there's still like contracts that are hanging and left in limbo. There are things that we are here to start again. All of that falls underneath. It falls underneath cosmic jurisdiction. And Libra is the sign of the zodiac that deals with all manner of contracts, legalities, justice. It's not the only sign, but it is the sign that deals with the contracts that come based upon our ability to hold the codes that we get through the Sirius gateway. That begins on the June solstice. It's amplified through the month of August. It begins to close out through Virgo season, and Virgo is when we learn how to negotiate our energy and our value in accordance with the new codes and upgrades that we've received through that window. And based upon how we alchemize ourselves and integrate and embody the energy and the frequency we need to hold those codes, come Libra season, the contracts we're connected to begin to align with that endeavor. Okay, so Libra season is when contracts begin to come out and to go and to begin to stick. And that's in preparation for Scorpio season. And if you guys have been rolling with me for a while, you'll know I call Scorpio season the spiritual black market high season of the false matrix. And that's because those beings who are not able to hold their codes and rise into new contracts, those codes then used to get dispersed onto the spiritual black market. And this is but one way that harvesters, siphoners, destiny swappers would do rituals and claim what was actually yours in the astral. So a lot of that is falling apart. It absolutely is on a collective level, and yet at the end of the day, the reclamation of your frequency and your codes is a personal endeavor. It's available for you to do now at a level that was never possible before, but at the end of the day, everyone must learn to align to their own frequency and hold their own codes for the purpose of not, quote unquote, opting in to another harvesting cycle. So if you've been noticing in the past few days, past week or so, it's been ongoing, but you might have noticed a rise in the covert energies that seek to attach to you emotionally, to take you down into places, timelines that you have either graduated from, are graduating from, and there's like this resurgence energy that wants to kind of pull people in again. Now, I'm not saying that in the sense that, it's not necessarily a warfare story for many of you who are connecting with me at this point. It's more a story of holding your frequency and being extremely discerning of what is behind the veil. The proverbial veil, because there's no real veil when you're an awakened being, right? There's no real veil when you get to know yourself, because you begin to realize the only thing that ever veiled you was self-deception that you bought into because of the programming, the wounding, the abuse, the brainwashing. But the real removal of the veil comes when you remove the internal veils that have kept you from seeing yourself and connecting in purity to source. So right now we are in a rebirth tunnel where whatever and whoever compromises your codes and your ability to hold on to them and bring them into full maturation, and that also occurs through the December solstice. Capricorn energy is the materialization of contracts and timelines. Whatever compromises your position to do that, and whatever compromises your ability to rise into new timelines, is on the chopping block. We often talk about Virgo season as being the season of separating the wheat and the chaff, the wheat from the chaff, rather. But in Libra season, that endeavor continues as we choose, based upon that season of going through and doing that self-work. So this message might also have extra resonance with you through some of these things that I was picking up on. Okay, so I was picking up on citrine, peridot, lemon quartz, gold, yellow, ants, solar plexus activations, and then the numbers 2, 7, and 9. I also was picking up on something that might be linked to the West, very specifically, westerly direction. So you can think about that on a global level if you want, what's west to you. You can think about that on a locational, regional level, or you can think about it literally as the corners, the four corners of direction, where the westerly direction actually indicates where things go to die, where they go to end, where things go to be sacrificed, right? And when I say that I'm not being morbid, I'm also talking about your role in the sacrifice system, which, in alignment with your divine truth, is when you sacrifice what isn't supposed to go forward with you. And when I say you sacrifice the things that aren't supposed to go forward with you, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about behaviors, mindsets, habits, situations, the things you've outgrown. That's what true sacrifice energy is for. It got misappropriated and fucked up in the false matrix, but really true sacrifice is our ability to rise into our next chapter and cycle and know what needs to be cut out, what's not going to make it into the next chapter, next book, next cycle, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So I'm going to put my notes aside, and I want to share with you, before I go into my deck, that 2 cards fell out and they've just kind of been chilling on my floor today until I got to them. I felt like they were important to leave there until I could pay attention, because they literally flew off my desk and landed on the ground. And when that happens, it's always a pertinent message. And the first one I saw, because they landed on top of each other, was time to get out. Talk to others and move your energy. You've stayed in hermit mode too long. That was the first card. And initially I thought it was one card until I moved it and saw there was a card right underneath. And this card says, Karmic Transference Rituals, Death, Sickness, Lack, Poverty, etc. Okay, so that just is a confirmation of what I've already kind of been referring to, because the message was coming through very specifically that false life support and life extension schemes are coming to an end. So what do I mean by that exactly? Some of you have literally been powering things with your life force. You've been keeping beings alive that should have not been here. You've been bringing your codes, and your life force has been bringing people into the planet that are trespassers, because they've been accessing your energy, siphoning you in a myriad of ways. You've been keeping whole corporations and businesses alive through the false matrix's siphoning and harvesting structures. You've been giving your life to things that aren't supposed to exist. And as such, as you rise, as we rise, as the earth rises into this, this true frequency again on the planet, where everything will and must be returned to their rightful frequential borders. Those things that have been hanging on to your energy, living off of your life force, channeling through you in order to stay alive, in order to prosper, in order to have health. So many ways. Transference of people transfer their sickness for you to transmute, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, their literal financial debt, their karmic debt. All that shit is things, very real things that people do consciously a lot of the time through ritual. And a lot of the time, ancestrally, there are contracts that kept you coming back in, binded to certain individuals or families so that harvesting could continue. And for many of you, that may have dated back all the way to the Atlantean timelines and the inception of the false matrix. In other words, you might have very well been tied to contracts for the entirety of the false matrix, where whenever you incarnated, you were already linked up for harvesting with certain individuals, certain groups, certain bloodlines, certain corporations, certain GOVT structures, you know, the list goes on and on. And therefore, your true vitality, your true life force, your creational codes, your ability to anchor yourself on the earth in the full resonance of who you actually are was not possible. You were depleted. You were only able to show up in a certain percentage of your energy, and oftentimes even that was being tunneled through for other reasons. And as the ascension has heated up and beings are waking up and calling their stuff back, these beings who have been feeding off of you, some of you for millennia, have been getting agitated and wanting to pull on you even more. And so a lot of the plugs that allowed for these beings to do that, especially where it applies to the collective grids and the systems that allowed for so much entity hopping, etc., a lot of those structures and corridors have collapsed. And so what you're left with now are these energies, entities, beings, groups, corporations, factions, societies, orders, whoever the fuck it might be for you, or all of the above for some of us. It's left them with no structure through which they can actually harvest, and their only way in is through you. Is through you adapting to the storylines, the mindsets, the behaviors that align with those old contracts and those old resonances and frequencies that gave them access, or also aligning yourself and consciously letting beings into your reality who also consciously or unconsciously seek to do that, which once again is why I say this part of the game is so much about discernment, and not discernment about other people per se, but discernment about self. Because when you know who you are, you're not so easily deceived. The biggest form of protection is being in your own energy and knowing who the fuck you are. And I was sharing, I think in the last reading I did here a few days ago, about how, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I was getting a lot of downloads around people actually waking up and remembering who they are. And part of that function I'm seeing now was for now, so that when these energies and entities try to come and lie in your face about who you are, about how you're acting, etc., to try and pull you into a vortex of fuck shit that doesn't align with your truth, you stand your ground and you say, not today, okay? Not today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not in a year, not in 100 years even. Like that whole, like, you gotta have that like green eggs and ham stank about you, you know. How does it go? It's like, I will not eat them in a boat. I will not eat them on a float. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam. Like, that's the kind of like, that's the kind of, that was one of my favorites as a kid. That's the kind of like energy you have to have, except be unrelenting. You can't give in at the end to Sam I Am and be like, okay, dude, I do like green eggs and ham. And no, you don't want to go there, right? You gotta stand your ground. But the whole point is, when you know who you are, and these energies try to come and entreat you in your own mind, in your in your communication with others, in your going out and about, because these energies are sneaky and covert as fuck, right? You've got to know what is really going on, right? Behind the external personas, exterior, and these energies are so tricky because they will come in and try to be enticing, to hook you, and to draw you in before you know what's actually going on. And again, I'm not saying this to scare anyone, because quite frankly, if you are hanging with me and watching my content, then I'm going to assume that you are at the level where you are able to be so fucking discerning, because again, you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you don't have to fear what other beings are doing. You have to be on high alert. You have to weed through that energy and recognize and understand and overstand what is real, 100% real on all planes, and what is the illusion being woven on these material ones. But you don't have anything to fear when you are grounded in yourself, because when you're grounded in yourself, you're grounded in source and you're protected. Yes? So let's get into, I feel the Kipper deck speaking to me right now. And I just dropped a whole other deck. Bear with me a second, guys. So as I prepare the cards, let me give you a few things that are coming through right now. A few signs that codes are returning into your field include sudden rushes of energy and vitality. And you might feel it in certain parts of your body and chakra system in accordance with what was taken, okay? You might experience, you know, what we call ascension symptoms, so however that's played out for you. You might go through those energetic adjustments where you have that surge of energy, and then you're also having to integrate it, so you're sleeping more and your dreams are becoming more vivid as a result. Your dreams might have many of those characters who have been a part in these life extension schemes. They might be people you know from this lifetime, and they might not be. They might be people that exist in this lifetime that you didn't have any idea were connected to your energy. They might be people from other timelines. You know, again, use your discernment. A lot of the time in those dreams at this level, you're being shown sometimes where beings are trying to reinforce the contract that was rolling and would go back into effect every October before you knew what was going on. You're also sometimes purging those energies, and I often say to you guys, the same way something enters is the same way it must leave. And so a lot of the time, the players that entered into your fields to do this, they will re-enter in some way, especially if they've been doing fuck shit astrally. They might try to enter into your energy field through dreams. If you are a seer, you might actually connect with their energy and see what it is that they're doing, etc. Chance run-ins and stuff, if there are people who've been in your life but they haven't been in for a while, people showing up on your feed randomly, like, you know, you take it as it resonates for you. You will know. You will know, but yes, to some extent it's a bid to renegotiate the contract, but sometimes it's also an indication that the energy is on its way out, and that's what it's showing you. And based upon how you react in your frequency to that reoccurrence or resurgence kind of determines how it's going to play out. So in other words, when those things re-enter your fields, if you react from a place of irrational fear and think that something is more powerful than you, then you've already given it power. If it enters into your field and you decide to put up all of your boundaries, etc., that's wonderful too. But what's most important is that you recognize what it is, its shenanigans, and you hold your frequency and your power against it, because it's not here. You're not here for that fuck shit anymore. Okay. What else? Is that it? As you go through this clearing, this reactivation, this expiry of contracts and new ones coming online, you might begin to reconnect more vividly with some of your original codes that come through in meditation and dreams. You might be receiving things back in dream state. You might be actually getting things physically that are signs and symbols of certain things coming back. You might just start noticing that things start moving in a different direction for you, okay? We have community. It's coming out, number 39. And at the bottom of the deck, we do have thief. Okay. So for some of you, this is really dealing with not necessarily single energies or life support, life extension schemes that you were connected to with individuals. And even if it is connected to an individual, there's a community aspect here. There's some kind of group activity or connection behind this. And the reason why this might be important is because your focus might be on the being that is losing what it is that they've wrongfully been holding on to, but they've been wrongfully holding on to it in some way to keep another initiative alive on the planet. So, you know, these harvesting structures can get very complex. Complex because some of them are rooted in like really old ancestral contracts that kept on being ratified is the word that I keep on hearing over the past 24 hours or so, that kept on being ratified. And so, and I'm talking about, you know, across timelines, incarnations, generations. And so, and then within these ancestral contracts are contracts connected to societies and orders, and those societies and orders are connected to certain institutions and agencies, etc. So there's a lot of group things that are about to begin crumbling, and this is where you might begin to really notice in the collective energy how much of an effect that these siphoning structures had on the collective picture. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again, some of you, even though you were only aware that maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people were tuned into your energy, those beings were connected to a wider network that was using them also. And it's actually at this point, it's a lot of the time those wider networks and groups and communities that want to use one person as an in to reconnect. So it's very seldom, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen because I've had clients who, you know, have had whole covens and groups that were, all of them were targeting them in ways that they knew, right? But then there are also scenarios and situations where you're not aware just how many people are behind the one scenario or situation that you think is just kind of a solo deal. And then again, some of them are cross-generational, so you've got like parents and aunts and uncles and siblings and cousins also connecting with different orders and societies and splitting your energy and branching you out into wider communities. And I've said it before, some of you would be shocked at just how many beings have been had been connected and plugged into you. And then again, you know, I spoke about this in a reading I did over the summer about the church and the agreements that people step into through the rituals of the church, and also like identifications in the false matrix and how they work to put you on a soul ledger system. At every level, you have been contracted here in some way for harvesting. It's just that some beings, the ties to the societies, the corporations, etc., it runs deeper. And I'm even thinking right now about like the big controversy that's happening here in the UK around like this digital ID thing, which is quite timely. Let's go into one of my Karmic Chronicles decks to get a little bit more information about this. What needs to come through concerning this? Ooh, I'm taking all of those. I will take that one that flew out. At the bottom, wanting to rush to increase confusion and make a decision that doesn't benefit you, slow down. So be very aware of where right now you have people trying to, and sometimes it's not even people trying to, it's more like you trying to do something that pushes you into something faster than you're ready for. Because in these New Earth timelines, every decision that you make must be from a stable foundation. And when I'm talking about a stable foundation, I'm talking about you energetically. So if your nervous system doesn't feel right when making a decision, then you delay that decision, because you are literally working from the creation of a new foundation. And the decisions you make right now have to be rooted in peace, in order to produce timelines of peace. So be very aware of things that want you to produce in chaos, and also beings who are harbingers of that chaotic energy. Okay. Okay, so they did this to your children too. If that doesn't resonate with you, this has something to do with your literal creational output. Give this person time and space so they can do the right thing. They're on the fence. So this might have to do with somebody who's been in your energy, or who in some way they're teetering between the old timeline and the new timeline, and your decision firmly, your feet are firmly in the new timeline. And what it's being asked of you to do is give this person time, if this resonates for you, because what they're going through is the alchemizing and the integration that they need to do on a personal level to rise into the timeline for themselves. Okay, so take it as it resonates. We do have psychic attacks, meditation and visualization, solitary. Okay, so if you're feeling like you're being psychically probed, just be aware that you might have someone in your field that is consciously seeking to shift your mental energy. And most of the time, psychic attacks don't just work through mental energy. They work through the emotional body, meaning that a perfect stranger cannot connect to you psychically if they don't connect with you on some level emotionally. And that doesn't mean they have to know you emotionally. It means that the emotion has to match you in some way. But the more intimate you are with a person, and the more emotional resonance you hold with that being, whether it's from present timelines, past timelines, even past incarnations, that creates a channel, an open channel through which mental energies can flow through very powerfully and connect with you, especially if you still hold some kind of emotion towards them. Okay, so be very aware of how that can occur, because and this is where, again, knowing yourself becomes so important, because when you know yourself and a thought enters your mind that is that doesn't align with your divine truth, not the program or the persona or the conditioning that has informed your entire life and timelines up to this point, but who you've actually tuned in and remembered yourself to be. If you have thoughts that contradict that, your organic, authentic power and truth, those thoughts are always to be questioned and, what's the word? I forget the word, but you know, like when people, like police officers do like intense investigation, those thoughts need to come under intense scrutiny, because they're not yours. They could be an entity, they could be, you know, They could be residue from your old mental patterns where it's easy for you to connect with that energy because it's been in your fields and in your mental programming for so long. It could be other people's projections that are connecting to old programming, wounds, etc. Be so aware of what you allow to flow into your mental fields. The thoughts that you have must align with the truth of who you are and not who and what somebody else needs you to be in their own narrative. Okay, energy transference. Here we go. Here we go. I feel like this is coming through because there's somebody also consciously seeking to transfer through psychic attack. Okay, now again, this is to be expected with people who've consciously been doing this work, because their whole desire right now is to reinstate the contract that was already running before you knew what was going on. Okay, so this is nothing new, what I'm sharing here. This is confirmation of what you already probably know at this point. It's just extra details. And so you don't feel like you're going crazy in any way, because sometimes on this journey when we've done so much work and this stuff is still happening, we wonder why. But here's the truth of the matter. The battle doesn't necessarily end. We're still in the complete destruction and decimation of the false matrix right now. And while our energy is supposed to be focused right now on our empowerment and our ability to stand in our frequency, these things that come in to take us out of our frequency, it's really important that we nip them in the bud and we don't ruminate about them, and we don't spend time worrying about them, and we can come into a quicker place of discernment so we can rise back into the truth of who we are. Okay? Ooh. And really, it's also just, really, it's shadow work. This is all like shadow work. It's always shadow work, because this is what these energies, when they enter into our fields, are showing us. They're showing us where we still have work to do, where we still have vulnerabilities, where we still have doubt, fear, guilt, and shame that's not rooted in truth. So really, it's always showing us how to come back and see, well, how did this thing even get into my energy in any way, shape, or form? Where is it that I am thinking a certain thing, feeling a certain way that isn't in alignment with my sovereign truth? Because that right there is the channel. Many people were paid off or promised things to stay quiet concerning what was being done to you. So someone's still looking for a fucking payday. You've been under mind control and part of an experiment that your family received money or access for. Old story. So you guys may still be dealing with the remnants of familial and ancestral energies and residues that are leaving, and those things are kind of cropping up again in order to try and reinstate themselves. But this time they have, like I said, no real structure to do so. All they have to work on is your own mental and emotional energy. I really want to move more into the area of guidance. Yeah, it's got to wind down now. I have 2 more places for my New Earth Wealth Codes Tarotstrology reading. For the one with decrees. I still have many places for the regular New Earth Wealth Codes Tarotstrology reading. But if you want a personalized decree that I write upon meeting you or after meeting you based upon our time together, there are 2 more slots for that particular service available. Okay? I'll put the links for both possibilities in the description box below. Here we go. Clean your space. Clear the energy out of your home. Okay? Create loose structure, not a rigid plan, but a tangible way forward. So this is especially for those of you who are feeling a little bit paralyzed in your situation right now and you don't know what your next steps are. it's time to clear the energy around you to get more clarity, and it's time to create a loose structure, not to become too married to the way that things are you feel are supposed to be moving forward, but more create flexible plans that you are able to kind of assign your energy to, but also aren't very daunting. Right now, in this window, it's really important that you focus on looking after yourself first. And a lot of us have been called into this place of slowing down. And the reason for that is in order to embody a lot of things, but it's also because the timelines you're moving into are timelines of peace. They're not timelines of confusion. They're not timelines of rushing. They're not timelines of pushing yourself past the limit. They're not timelines of grinding. They're timelines of learning how to settle into your own rhythm and prospering from that place. And so where you have been called to slow down and you feel guilty or ashamed for that, like you're not doing enough, that is an invitation to do the shadow work around the programming that makes you feel that way. And I say that as a person who's doing the shadow work presently as to why the fuck I feel that way, right? Because that programming and imprinting is deep, that feeling like if you're not doing something towards the next step, that you're failing, that you're lazy, that you're not being productive, and etc., etc. But it's not about that right now. I don't remember if I said this in a reading. I think I said it in the Jade members meeting that I had this past Sunday with some of my members. And this is like, especially when you get to Virgo season every year, this is like the last few days before you deliver a baby energy. You're not supposed to be running around doing things that you wouldn't do if you were like 9 months pregnant. You're supposed to be chilling out and getting ready to give birth. And that's kind of where many of you are now energetically. And so expecting for yourself to do a whole bunch of things is actually counterproductive to your moving forward. And it's also counterproductive to your actually holding your codes and holding the resonance and the frequency that is necessary for you to bring your new contracts to life. Okay? I never got into that card that fell on the ground also that said about it's time to come out of hermit mode, to get out a little bit more and to connect with people. That is also to shake up the energy of the familiar, because a lot of those attempts and bids to reconnect to your energy, it thrives in the familiar. So breaking up your energy, doing things that you wouldn't normally do, going to places you wouldn't normally go, like communicating with people like when you're out and about, being more social, breaking the monotony of what it is that is your normal routine can actually be really powerful for breaking through some of the familiarity that these old energies like to cling to. Okay? Oops, that one. Okay, it's a lot of cards. Stop beating yourself up. We're not in Virgo season anymore. I know it all too well. I'm a Virgo ascendant. We know how to beat ourselves up. Stop it. Stop it right now. Uncrossing work is necessary, okay? So this is talking about the identification of the connecting threads that hold certain behaviors and mindsets and issues and cycles alive in you. That's uncrossing work, in my opinion. I like to work through ritual when doing a lot of this stuff. So I do uncrossing work and uncrossing candles on self, okay, to get to the nitty-gritty of the pieces that are holding timelines, cycles, behaviors together that need to be seen, dissected, pulled apart, etc. Money cleansing work is needed. Money cleansing work is needed, okay? Social media and media break. Too many influencing voices and energies, okay? So there's nothing wrong with seeking guidance from other beings, but don't let them drown out your own energy. Sometimes you need to take a social media fast. I just was called a few weeks ago to come off of Threads for like a week. and to only like engage on YouTube. So that's what I did, like with the videos I do, because YouTube for me doesn't feel as, I don't know, maybe it's because of how I relate to YouTube and I use it. I don't feel it to be as pulling as other social media channels in terms of pulling my attention. I very seldomly on YouTube like mindlessly scroll, whereas the other social media accounts, I find myself oftentimes doing that, and it's amazing how much information you're taking in. And it's not the information that is always harmful, especially when you tune your algorithm. It's the fact that you are oversaturating yourself with information and not making room for actually what wants to flow through. And sometimes that senseless or that mindless scrolling we're doing on social media, it's because we're looking for an answer and we're getting agitated in our own souls and we're looking for a distraction. And messages come through social media all the time, but that's actually one of a key indication that it's time to unplug, it's time to rest, it's time to dream, it's time to meditate, it's time to go out for a walk and get things moving, let the air flow, clear your mental energy, get your physical body going and move stagnation, take a salt bath, all of that stuff, because there is something that's wanting to come through. The agitation that you're feeling in your soul is indicative of the fact that there's something that wants to come through. You're already feeling it and you're anxious because you're wanting to receive it. And then that anxiety you feel, not realizing that that's what's really going on, leads you to do things to distract yourself. And then that only increases that feeling. So when that rises, make sure to check in on yourself and your own soul for what it actually needs. And a lot of the time what you need is a little bit of clearance, a little bit of connecting deeper with self in order to pull in what is already in your mental sphere and is waiting kind of for you to accept it. Take one step towards your intention or goal, cultivating self-commitment. Okay, so again, this kind of pairs in with the create loose structure, not a rigid plan, but a tangible way forward. The best way to navigate this energy of uncertainty is to do little things that make you feel every single day like you're moving towards a goal in a loose kind of way, because maybe you don't know what the whole goal is. Or maybe you know what the whole goal is, but you don't know how to get there and you don't know the details. And taking small steps to kind of make you feel like you're getting closer can make you feel also like you're getting some traction. And this is oftentimes where things start to unfold and you start to see clearer the next steps. But it's also where if you find yourself like paralyzed, because of the doubt, because of the fear, the uncertainty, the guilt of being, too still, doing the small steps can help you to feel more committed and break you out of that like feeling of like energetic paralysis. Let me go into my Abundance Angels deck, since we did get a card about money clearing work is necessary. Let's see if anything comes through, then we'll wrap this up. As these old life extension and false life support contracts and schemes come to a close, what you're really dealing with are not necessarily attacks and retaliation. You're dealing with the residual energy that needs to come up and be seen and cleared. That's the most important thing to know. Libra season will test how committed you are to yourself based upon what you were supposed to learn through your time in Virgo season. This is why Libra deals with intimate partnerships also. The most important relationship you have in terms of building all partnerships is the one you have with yourself, which is why Virgo comes right before. At the bottom of the deck, we have released resentments about money. Yes, the money system of the world can seem upsetting, but holding resentments about finances just pushes your abundance away. Instead, see money as a tool you can use to better the world, and this shift will help you attract, support, and golden opportunities. Okay? That's at the bottom of the deck what actually came out. Dreams of abundance. As you sleep, God, your angels, and your higher self are giving you divinely guided ideas, answers, and solutions. Be sure to record your dreams in a journal because they contain valuable insights that will help you manifest your desires into reality. Indeed. So like I said before, there's a lot of information that's wanting to come through right now in about new contracts. As well as information about the codes, very specifically, that are coming through about those new contracts. And for many of you, this has to do with your wealth codes. That's what's coming through right now. And if you're spending too much time in a lower frequency of fear, of guilt, or shame, or worry, then you're missing the opportunity to actually connect with what these codes are showing you and how to begin to move to make your next steps to actually integrate and embody what's coming forth. So we've got dreams of abundance. And then we also have focus on your priorities. Where you put your focus is where you receive your outcome. Your priorities are calling to you, which may produce a feeling of anxiety unless you give them the time and attention they and you deserve. Even a small amount of time devoted to your priorities will help you feel better and more confident. So again, we have all of this coming through, same that was coming through in the guidance about taking small steps, doing things that anchor in your commitment to yourself. Focusing on yourself. That Virgo theme, it does continue through Libra season. Through Libra, you become more, start to move out more into the collective energy, absolutely. But again, the foundation of it is your balance with self. Okay, and that's what the scales of justice are actually measuring in terms of the contracts that are closing out and coming in. Okay, so that's what I have for you. I hope that this reading and these downloads were helpful and insightful and empowering. I hope they rooted you deeper into the truth of who you are, your frequency, and your power, and how much authority you really have over this whole scenario. I thank you so much for all of your love and your support. Thank you for chilling with me in this time. Thank you to those of you who have purchased readings, my decrees. Thank you to those of you who comment. Thank you. Just thank you for your love and your support. I do appreciate you guys. I will be back again when I'm back again. And until then, be well.